All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you guys for joining us today. We have a panel discussion that we're going to launch into here on marketing's role in digital transformation. Quick note, if you are on Twitter, LinkedIn, social media, these are our hashtags and handles. And folks who share content on social and help kind of drive more attendance to ParDreamin, we have some awesome swag and prizes to give away at the end of the event. So for those of you who were not on the opening keynote, my name is Andrea Terrell. I'm the CEO and founder of Sercante. I'm also the founder of the Spot for Pardot. And I'm thrilled to be moderating today's panel with Jill Carpenter, Liam Doyle, and Natasha Wetten. Jill, who's all the way in sunny California at the moment, was actually Sercante's first customer. She's been in both B2B and B2C marketing leadership roles, and currently is an investor in several tech and marketing startups. Liam works for IMD Business School, which is based in Lausanne, Switzerland, so far opposite side of the time zone spectrum. And then Natasha is based in Philly. So before we dive into things, I'll let you guys do a quick round of intros. Natasha, could you kick us off?
Sure thing. Hi, everyone. I'm Natasha. I've been in the B2B marketing space for about 10 years, working in digital marketing, demand generation, marketing operations. I'm currently at Parexel Informatics, where we provide technology services to support clinical trials on the marketing team, really supporting growth and demand gen. And yeah, I'm in Philadelphia, based in Philadelphia in the US, and I think that about covers it. Pass it over to Lee. You want to go, Liam?
Yeah, good evening, or good morning, I guess, for you guys. Good evening for me. So my name is Liam Taylor. I'm responsible for all elements of B2B and B2C marketing at IMD Business School in, as Andrea mentioned, in Lausanne, Switzerland. So IMD is an executive education provider, and we're heavy users of Pardot Salesforce within the organization. So I oversee all of the activities related to the marketing tech stack. And I'll pass you on to Jill.
Uh-oh, Jill, it looks like we're losing your video. So if you want to try maybe pausing it and restarting it.
Interesting. Can you hear me, Andrea?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm going to duck out and come back in. Continue on. I'll see if that helps.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. So the goal of today's panel, so the theme is marketing's role in digital transformation. And this morning we heard from Mike Costow, the GM of Pardot, on what it takes for marketers to lead an organization through change. And the current climate creates a super unique environment for marketing teams. The silver lining of the challenges that we're facing is there's a huge opportunity to accelerate the pace of adoption of digital, and also some opportunities for marketing to kind of step outside of their swim lane and influence other parts of the organization that in the past may have viewed marketing as just a cost center. So in this panel discussion, we're going to be diving into some of those topics. So looking at the expanding definition of marketing, the expanding role of marketing, how marketers can get a seat at the table, and what technology you need to take things to the next level. So we're going to dive into some questions here. And I threw this note in the chat, but if you have any questions for the panel, any specific person, or if you just like to pose it to the whole group, feel free to throw that out in the chat. We'd like to keep this super interactive and conversational. So the first question that I'd like to get us started with is, what's the biggest barrier that you're seeing in either your organizations or companies that you work with? What are the biggest barriers standing in the way of trying to move forward with a digital transformation project? Natasha, could you maybe kick us off on this one?
Yeah, sure. I think we could spend a lot of time on this, but I think one of the biggest barriers, I'll start kind of broadly speaking, and I think this applies to marketing departments in particular. Is a bit of like a fear of jumping into something new, and kind of, this kind of ties to what you were just saying, a little bit of like going outside of that swim lane. It's kind of like an unknown of, okay, we need to interact with this other department because marketing really needs to infiltrate pretty much every department. But in what way do we communicate jumping over to that other swim lane? And I've a barrier. It's more of like an emotional barrier. It's that fear of like getting outside of your comfort zone. But I think that it's one that's easily overcome. But I think it ties in with this concept of, for digital transformation to happen, we need to be aligned cross-departmentally, and we need to be courageous enough, for lack of a better word, to make those ties, make those relationships cross-departmentally, improve our value.
Awesome. Liam, I'd love to get your take on this as well. At IMD, have you guys run into any barriers kind of as you've looked at making the switch to a more digital presence?
Yeah, I think again, to echo what Natasha's saying, we could probably talk for the whole session on this topic alone. And yeah, I think for us that there's probably two real barriers, so to say. I mean, there's probably many more, but the key ones that I pick out really are the first one is really about the inability to experiment or aversion to risk. So as an organization, we're a successful organization and want to continue to be. And quite often that comes with it that you become averse to taking risks. So you don't want to step out of your so-called comfort zone or do something that may affect your day-to-day business, and that's one thing that can stand in the way for a lot of organizations. Is you have this challenge of being competitive and staying where you are today, but building something for the future. And I think you have to sort of ask those questions. Is it okay in some sense of what we're doing to be suboptimal with some things during this process? And in some things you could say yes, and some things no. And I think the second big point which we've faced, and I'm sure many organizations face, is this legacy or history piece that in some ways, you know that the change is coming. It's something that has to be done. But quite often what I've seen, and when you work with different business units, is a tendency to try and recreate what they had historically from one system to another. And rather than rethink the whole process, it's just saying oh, we've always done it this way, so that's the way we need to do it. And that's really something that, sometimes you don't get the changeover phase because maybe you don't have enough depth knowledge of where you're going to, and that's where having the right sounding board partners and people on the implementation side is really important.
Yeah, I think those comments are spot on. And we have some great comments in the chat as well about getting alignment between departments, encouraging adaptability of leaders, and then also just getting sales on board, which as marketers is a challenge I know that you, all three of you guys have dealt with in various capacities. So sales is kind of in an interesting spot too, because all of the face-to-face relationship building and the way that a lot of selling has been done to date has had to evolve and change. Could you guys comment on kind of what you've seen in your organizations? Like how do you sell sales on the impact of ParDot and digital marketing? And Jill, maybe if you're connected back to audio, do you want to maybe start with this one?
Bet. Well, I think there are three aspects to this, and Liam and Natasha have touched on most of this already. Part of it is upfront, companies often don't know how to judge the options presented to them. Everything from what will the tool or project do, to how long will it take, to how much effort is it going to take to get to a positive end result. And that cuts across new tools, new projects, and existing projects as well. And then communicating and getting alignment on what's the best tool, for the job, and sales being closest in is a huge issue. And I've seen this from the consulting side, from the working and marketing side, and from the investor side. So getting more information out there and more communication is super important, and sales has to really be your best buddy. They have to be truly integrated to make things work.
Yeah, I could not agree more. Liam, what about you? How have you seen that play out at IMD? And I mean, being a school, obviously the sale is a little bit of a different type of transaction, but how have your program advisors, what have you found effective at getting them to buy into the tools and processes that marketing is bringing to the table?
Yeah, I think part of that has been a change in my approach and mindset. I think as a kid on Christmas Day, that when you get to play with these tools, you see the possibilities and the capabilities, and it's exciting, and you know, it's almost a live sandbox that you get to play with. And I think, you know, I'm a bull in a china shop. I want to move quickly and get things done, and I think sometimes that you have to be able to take that step back and, you know, listen carefully to the processes and systems and approach that your salespeople have, and find solutions that work for all. And I think what we found is, you know, you do get pushback. You will get people who maybe don't agree with that, and that can be difficult to deal with. But you have to try and find those champions within that group who can help, who can drive forward with you, who can be the voice of reason amongst colleagues. And I have a sense that you can almost come to a tipping point when you have people that maybe not on board with something, and then suddenly the light switches, they see the possibility, and then it can almost go 180 degrees the other way to say, I want more. How can you do more for me? How can you do better? And I mean, that's a nice thing to have, but it's certainly not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, getting people to that, like, where have you been all my life type of moment is an amazing thing. And I think your comment about like pace being a really important thing to take a look at is spot on. As marketers, sometimes like we see the value, we want to run at it, we want to just go. But slowing down to talk about process, how it intersects with other departments, sometimes taking that time on the front end actually helps you move faster in the long run. So this one's a little bit of a veer in a different direction, but what advice would you give to marketers who are suddenly being asked to contribute in different departments or areas that historically have been outside of their swim lanes? Jill, do you have any thoughts on how marketers should respond to that?
I'm in marketing. I have thoughts. I go back to the keynote, what was early this morning for me, talking about empathy and customer 360. Marketing is really in everything now, and that empathetic viewpoint from the customer's viewpoint is everything. So enjoy the spotlight. I think it's a chance for marketers to really show that all along they've been acting as CTOs of their area, acting as sales reps, et cetera, and taking on not just empathy with the customer, but empathy with other departments, because we enable so many different departments. And so enjoy it.
I love that. Natasha, any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I think it's a follow-up to that, and it kind of relates back to what we were discussing in the last part about even getting folks on the sales organization as one example of the many cross-departmental alignments we need to make. Grabbing someone to be a brand or a champion of the tools and technology that we're putting out there. But I think, and this is actually something that I learned from Sir Conte and working with the group there around ownership. I think the marketing organization really has to take this opportunity to not let anyone come back to them really and say, well, the meeting was just never scheduled or something never happened. Like, I think this is a great opportunity for marketers to like really take the reins and not being like overly assertive, but in a really like just building those relationships, like actually like you reaching out, you taking the onus on everything that happens, because we kind of have to at this pivotal moment. And as time goes on, marketing will become, I think, more ingrained and the value will be shown more inherently. But I took that away. Ownership. Take the ownership of all the interactions.
Love that. I think it's to your point about getting sales and other departments on board. I think when building relationships and trying to make change, extreme ownership over everything that you can control, and kind of if you not just meeting people halfway, but meeting people 99% of the way, if that's what it takes to get your project moved forward. I think that's huge. Liam, any advice that you would give to marketers on who are suddenly kind of in the spotlight and asked, what should we do about digital transformation?
Yeah, I think one of my keywords for the year, or I don't know, for the past few years, has always been curiosity, and that's something I have within myself and encourage within the people that I work with. And I guess it's about asking the question of yourself: are you curious enough to want to know what works and what doesn't work, and are you willing to and brave enough to fail and to learn from that? And I think honestly, I have to be honest, I've lost track of the number of mistakes I make this year, last year, every week, and I think that's really important that people accept that that's going to happen. We work for big organizations, and you're not going to get everything right. I wish it was the case, but in many cases, it's important to have those failures along the way, and you learn from that, take away from it. And really, it's a cliched saying, but it's a marathon and not a sprint. And to be completely honest, I don't know any project that we've got to the end to and said, well, it's completely done, because it's not. It's an iterative process. We have an idea of what we want to achieve. We go ahead and hopefully we get there, but then pretty sure along the way we found something else out that's going to take this to the next step, and so on and so forth. So I think it's about not being overwhelmed by it, taking stock of the situation, taking a step back to think about how you want to approach this, and having trust in the people around you.
Absolutely. And we have a question in the chat from Isa on can the role of a product marketer help with digital transformation in an organization? And maybe kind of a question to pair with that. If marketers are in a role where maybe they're not the first person that the organization is turning to help with these initiatives, what can they do to be a part of what that future looks like for the company? Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
I think that the role of product marketing, I think the answer to the question in my opinion is absolutely yes. I think that this is a great chance for like a product marketer or a team of product marketers to take a step back as well, in the same way that like a commercial marketing team is taking a step back and not just becoming a cost center. The product marketing team also kind of taking that step back and understanding the value of thinking of marketing programs and initiatives holistically versus sales saying, hey, we have this, or product coming to you from this angle, sales coming to you from this angle saying, hey, we have a new feature, we need a new one sheet. Kind of taking that step back and thinking, wow, where we're at today to communicate that is way beyond just a sell sheet. What else do we need to do? Website, ads, like what paid search, what are all of the things that we need to consider, and then link up with your commercial team, or I don't know if commercial is the right word for it, but your marketing ops team or the team that's actually executing on that, and really plot out a holistic plan for that new feature, that new product release. But that's the way that I see product marketing being able to realign the way they work with product on one hand for releases and features, and then your thought leadership team on the other hand on all of the opportunities and new opportunities thought leaders have to get their message out.
Yeah, those are great points. And one other kind of story or thought that I'll add. So my husband works for a large industrial automation company that manufactures control products and solutions. And a big part of their sales process historically has been like sending product that people can touch, feel, build demos with, and be very hands-on with it. So one of the things that they're challenged to come up with right now is how can they replicate that experience online so that all projects don't have to be on hold until people can get back on the factory floor. It's like there's a different way to experience working with those products, but definitely a big challenge to navigate.
Picking up on what Natasha said, the earlier you can make that connection to understand how the product marketer looks at the customer and how the customer will find, in your example, Andrea, will use the tool, the better. So early discussion.
Love it. And please keep the questions coming in chat. I think it adds some interesting color when we hear what's top of mind for the audience. So another kind of question, just as we think about digital transformation, what this looks like long term, have you all seen any changes in your organization around how people think about reporting and analytics in light of kind of the digital movement that's taking place? And Liam, could you kick us off on this one?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the long and short of it is yes, we've seen changes, but I think you know, I'm not afraid to admit we, as an institution, as a group of business units, we've never particularly been driven on the analytical side of things. I think there are pockets of people who have an understanding and a know-how and a desire to do that, but in many ways we've been a victim of our own success. We've been a successful business, and sometimes you tend to focus on what you've done well and ignore the things you haven't done well. And I think that's what we're really looking for now. I mean, you'll know firsthand because you worked with us on the connected campaigns implementation we had middle of last year, and we've spent a lot of time playing around with structure and approach, and I think we're moving into a real strong position with that in 2021 as a marketing organization. And I think now we're looking at this holistically and saying it's not just an attraction piece, it's end-to-end customer touch points. How do we do that? What are the tools we use, and how do we track each of those on an individual basis and associate it with ROI? So for us, that's been a huge shift, and you know, I'm not going to say it's complete. It's something that we'll carry on doing for a long time. We're not anywhere near where we know we should or need to be. We have ideas, and we're implementing slowly but surely, I would say.
Yeah, I think what you touched on about like every single interaction is now kind of part of the full marketing life cycle. So not just attracting somebody for the first time, for the first purchase, but staying in touch with that person, staying in front of them, looking for referrals, looking for ways to get them to take the next step. All of that kind of falls into the realm of marketing if you play your cards right. Natasha, what about your organization? How are people thinking about reporting and analytics, and has that changed as a result of the pandemic and the challenges that we find ourselves facing?
I had a little bit of a different experience actually. I kind of am finding that with all of the change this year, this has actually been a good thing in my mind, is that the focus on I've kind of seen this separation between a focus on like marketing metrics, but now it's like, okay, these are the metrics, these are our objectives, our goals that tie back up to business roadmap. And that's what our executives care about, and that's what they are like. They're like, just that's what I want to see. That's about it. And that's, you know, what's linking back to revenue within various models, within various attribution modeling. But they've become very like, okay, we might not be able to capture all of that because, especially in this new environment, our buyers are doing so much before they are known to us. I think like across the board, we're all becoming a little bit more comfortable with anonymity, which is really interesting. I feel like so much has been leading up to being able to capture all of those touch points, and I still obviously think that's so valuable, especially once someone's past that like raised their hand and known to us point. But so much is happening before that I think our leaders are really interested in those higher level objectives, which I think is what they should be interested in, and what I want to share with them. And within the marketing team, we're trying to pick up on trends and behavior that's happening before a prospect raises their hand to us and becomes known to us. I think people sitting at home and being with the pandemic, it's like that shift is happening even more now that the buying journey happens. So much of the buying journey happens before someone's like, I want to talk to sales. So we have to I'm finding that I'm trying to become more comfortable with that, with it being a little more anonymous.
Those are great points. And we've had customers on both ends of the spectrum where some people want to measure everything. So every campaign touch point, every vehicle or medium that sent somebody to a specific touch point, and tracking every detail of every interaction so that we can analyze that and look for ways to improve. But then the other side of the spectrum is like, what do we do with that information? So like, what data points are actually actionable, something that we can report up to the C-suite and make a decision based on, and trying to prioritize some of those metrics over like the analyze everything approach. And I think there's merit to both schools of thought there. Jill, I'd love to hear your take, because I know measurement and analytics is a hot area for you. How are you thinking about reporting and analytics kind of in this new environment?
Well, let me take a step back and say that we were one of the first companies to implement connected campaigns, thanks to Sir Conte. And it was huge because it not only allowed us to track things more effectively, it also allowed us to do scenario-based planning. What if leads go up X%? What if leads go down Y%? And it allowed us to sit down and have that discussion with sales. Okay, what do we need to generate and when to fuel our shared forecasted objectives? Metrics are definitely a hot button. I'm watching the chat also, and I think we all face a lot of the same issues of understanding marketing influence versus marketing as a profit center. I come out of consumer packaged goods marketing, where marketing was a profit center. And so my management completely understood that marketing drove revenue. That's not always the case in SaaS or in tech companies, where I think the perception is more that the engineers drive the revenue along with sales. So getting alignment on that vision of, I think Natasha mentioned it, having a shared corporate objective that we can all create tactics to feed up to, and one of those very important tactics is measuring things, is really important. I also like what Liam said about constantly iterating. It was to the last question, but it sure makes sense with metrics. Like, you try measuring things and communicating them. If that doesn't work, lather, rinse, repeat, try something different. But marketing has been hailed as sort of an art and a science, kind of like medicine. And more, the science part is really coming to the forefront.
So Jill, on the theme of lather, rinse, and repeat, we have a great question from Corey, who is saying that we see some companies just rinsing and repeating and doing the same things that have worked over and over and over again. And question for the panel is, do you all have any insight or ideas on how we can break people out of that mold and try a new tactic, or try something that's different than the way that things have always been done, if the way things have always been done seems to be working? Liam, do you have any thoughts on that one?
Yes, I guess in one sense I'm incredibly lucky. And this might just be a specific scenario related to me, but I know I mentioned about the Sandbox and Kid on Christmas Day before, and it really is. I have a level of freedom in some of the work that I do, and some of the things that we're able to try, and we try and have an association of our time with things that do break the mold, and say, okay, we're willing to fail on this percentage of things because it's worth trying, and that's really done. So I tend to do that on one or two ways. The first is I keep a list that I just add to every now and again. I might be in the supermarket, maybe on the train, if an idea comes to mind, I drop it on the list, and then I sit with the few other people that I work with, and once a month we just go through that list of ideas and say, okay, which ones do we think might work or may not work, and how are we going to go about this, and how do we put in place a scenario where we can test and see if this may or may not work for us. But I understand that's probably a unique scenario for me. It's not always possible for everyone, so I don't know that I'm the best place to provide the best piece of advice for someone whose organization isn't as supportive on that front.
Natasha, what's been your experience with that? Kind of trying to convince others in your organization to try new and different things.
I mean, I definitely think it starts within the department, and kind of encouraging a level of open-mindedness. It's like a level of going back to that fear of failure, that level of being open to fail, and being okay with it also kind of balances out with like this openness to kind of like pull up your sleeves and do some legwork. I mean, I think a lot of times we fall into this rinse and repeat type of model. A lot of times because it's just really easy. As a marketing ops person, we already have all of the assets. We have templates created for these things. It's kind of like very easy to replicate a campaign again. But I think if you have the right people on the team or the right leaders who are saying, hey, let's do this, let's try something new, then you're excited to kind of roll up your sleeves and build something new. Because it is a lot of work. It is a lot of work to try something new that's not already templated out. So I really think it comes down to who's on the team and the leaders being open-minded. I think if you're someone that's trying to reach that type of person, prep in advance as much as you can. Like Liam said, like if you've thought of an idea, I'd say if you're working with leadership that's really not open to that, I think even providing a completely arbitrary, here's what I think this will produce, I think that kind of, if you can shop that around to different departments or even just up the marketing chain per se, I think even just having like what you might think this can produce in a really organized fashion can support new ideas. That's been my experience, but also feel lucky that we try new things all the time that are those types of like train ideas. But it is kind of like a roll up your sleeves scenario when you have to really dig in and plan something new.
Awesome. Yeah, and your comments get a little bit at one of the questions that I'm seeing in the chat here from Terrell. So it sounds like you both are in organizations where MOPS is pretty well supported, and there's just kind of some general understanding from leadership on how these things work. But for marketers who are in a scenario where senior leadership doesn't understand what marketing operations even is, much less why it's important, what are some of the things that you can emphasize or demonstrate to start articulating the value that marketing operations can bring? And Jill, can I pick on you to go first on this one?
You bet. I think there's a lot of value in mapping out what marketing operations does. We talked about tools that we like in our tech stack. Not just mapping the customer journey, but mapping the operations journey as well. I use a tool called Lucidchart a lot to do that, but there are lots of other tools out there that do similar things. marketing tactics have a way of, they have a natural tension between optimization and degradation, right? I feel like I'm getting very close to a movie tagline here. Anyway, you want to optimize those things that are still working, and there's a price tag to going to new things. So mapping that out, showing it visually, goes back to also the ability to pick new tools. It's not just new tactics or new marketing campaigns, also new tools to support the effort, and to build the case for why innovation is really important. Because honestly, if you don't do it, your competitors will. So it behooves you to communicate up really effectively. And again, mapping that out is not something we all always do, but I found to be really helpful.
Awesome. Yeah, great points. So two other questions in the chat that I'd like to jump to before going back to my trusty list of questions here. Alicia posed the question of kind of when we're looking at digital experience, user experience overall, do you find scenarios where the focus on that is lost or that's overlooked because marketers sometimes are laser focused on a specific goal, like X number of MQLs or X number of sales qualified opportunities? Do you see that, like, the overall experience sometimes being lost in the shuffle?
This one's tough for me just because it's, to me, a lot of it's really reliant on that leadership backing that we were talking about in the chat a bit, that if the leaders aren't behind this transformation to ensure the customer experience is consistent and strong through all departments and all touch points, customer service, sales, marketing, and without the leadership backing, those are really huge initiatives, which is, makes sense why the question's being asked versus day-to-day goals. So that leadership backing is really important in my mind. It's like if we're not able to move out of our swim lanes to talk to other departments if we don't have the backing of that department's head. So yeah, that's a really good question, and one that I don't know that I have an answer to beyond that, but I'm really interested to hear what Jill and Liam think.
Yeah, Jill and Liam, feel free to jump in on this one if you have any thoughts. But we've talked a lot about measurement. I think another key, kind of as we're looking at marketing's role in this, is ensuring that the targets and the numbers that we're working towards really reflects the impact that we expect marketing to have in the organization. So if marketing is a pure lead gen engine, then MQLs, influenced opportunity, volume, those are great metrics. But things like customer retention, customer satisfaction, those tie a little bit closer to the digital experience piece. In organizations where I've seen that be really strong, marketing is also incentivized to look at some of those metrics.
Yeah, and I think it touches a little bit on organizational design, as in, if the expectation is that it's just more, then there is a finite limit of time, resources that you can put into that, and I think that tends to be the focus these days. We want more, we want better, and I think it's around designing the team and choosing the resources correctly to say that we're going to be able to absorb this piece of workload. And I think again, it's scenario based, but one thing that you have to be able to do is accept that some elements of what you do are just not going to be a finished polished article at the first port of delivery or all of the time, and accept that will happen. But if you have that the larger goal in mind, that you're working towards a finished product or a finished project, that you will get there eventually, and accept that along the way some things may not be squeaky clean.
Yep, totally agree. And it kind of in the category of things that aren't super cut and dry or aren't super squeaky clean at all times. Jaime has a great question about kind of when discussing the idea of campaign influence with sales, should marketing just be taking credit for MQLs and net new people that they're adding to the database? Or do you guys think that marketing can claim credit for leads that originated elsewhere and that marketing is involved in helping nurture? Anybody who wants to jump in on that one, I'll let someone jump in there.
All right, well, I'll jump in. I have a little on the last question also, which is, I think balancing long-term and short-term, tactics versus working on new ideas or new scenario-based building. It helps if you're working under some sort of agile marketing framework, because then you can explicitly call out, the marketer, need time to work on fill in the blank, creativity, new ideas, how we align with strategy, or 3, the question that you actually just asked, which is how do we assign and attribute things that haven't been traditionally in that lead gen bucket. And because marketing pervades everything, marketing is empathy for the consumer situation matched with whatever your company is delivering. There definitely has to be a recognition that it's not just lead gen. Now, there are marketing orgs that are just lead gen, but that's pretty rare nowadays. So I would argue that it behooves marketing to look at how it touches every single part of the customer journey. And if it's not clear, then have a discussion with that department of support, as an example, and see how marketing can't infuse that empathy for the customer situation into every single part of the customer's journey. And then it will be more obvious why marketing has an impact on not just leads, but qualified leads and referrals and reviews and etc.
I love that. I love all of that, Jill. Like, that really resonates with me. And I just sort of, like, on the ground, I think a way that like, limiting marketing only being measured against one metric, like an MQL, for instance, I think one way on the ground that causes issues is the quality of the leads, like you said, Jill. Like, if we're really only measured on MQLs, then the quality is potentially going to go down. Relationship and trust with sales can be tarnished. So I think, yeah, I agree with everything you said, but kind of on the ground, have experienced that firsthand, where I've been responsible for an MQL number, and they're not as strong as they would be. So then I'm not as inclined, or not me personally, but the person that's responsible for that MQL number is not as inclined to refine the work that they're doing to actually get or bring in qualified opportunities.
There's some commentary in the chat about digital tools, and is there such thing as too many digital tools? I would agree with the direction Celine's taking it. The guess, I think sometimes that can be the case. But so in terms of the tools that are like fundamental to the MarTech stack that you all are managing, are there any products or things that have been instrumental in your organization's transition to a more digital oriented footprint? Liam, I'll let you go first on that one.
Yeah, thank you. Yes is the short answer to that. We've spent much of 2020, I mean the latter part of 2019, but much of 2020 embedding qualified and time trade into our organization, and there's been an element of testing, learning, failing, understanding what works and what doesn't work there. But I think, that Salesforce and Pardot bring with them an incredible set of tools on their own, but there are limitations that you will hit, and that we definitely hit as an organization. And I think as a group, looked at what all of those customer touch points were, and to try and find where those negative points are, or where we're losing out, and qualified and time trade as two pieces of technology were two of the answers that we brought to that mix. So we've really gone all in with those tools this year. We've redesigned our whole engagement strategy, and it's something that we're still in the middle of with elements of it, but they're really fundamental to how we do business now. They've optimized the use of our resources internally just immensely across the program advisory team that we have, and we're having a much more successful engagements with customers because we're engaging them at the right time.
And for those who aren't familiar with Qualified and Time Trade, could you give a super quick description of what both of those products do?
Absolutely. So Qualified is, I think I probably look at it twofold. It's a chat bot on the one hand, and a live chat piece on the other hand. So it's really the tool or the technology piece to take customers from maybe anonymous or known into having a discussion with an individual, and I think it's geared around speeding up that time to contact, and it's absolutely been a game changer for what we've done this year. And Time Trade is essentially an automated calendar booking solution. So we face the scenario of playing tennis via email between our sales agents and customers, and Time Trade just takes that completely out of it. We just connect up with the calendars of our sales team and offer people slots that work for them.
Yeah, and I definitely see both of those tools as they're great for marketing, but they're also great for winning sales hearts and minds because it makes their lives easier. It fits right into their process and fits kind of right.
Eventually, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Once we got over some of the initial hurdles, for sure.
Jill, how about you? Any must-have MarTech items that you'd recommend to other marketers to have in their stack?
I brought a list. And I'll go quickly because I see we're running out of time. So let's just do the Silicon Valley thing and Rigby, the fact that Salesforce, Pardot, fabulous, that goes without saying, okay. I brought some that you might not have thought of, and a lot of these are what I would call no code or low code. So they're low load on marketing ops, high value add. The first two are a company called Loop VOC, which helps you with review tracking. You do reviews across lots of different platforms, Capterra, AppExchange, G2, where's my mug? Somewhere there. And you need to harmonize them and see the trends and report that back to your product people. This is a product that does that. And I'll give you the list afterwards. Crayon, also a competitive tracking tool. Owler is another one that's like it, where you're looking for ideas, you're trying to keep up with, did my competitor change their pricing page? If so, when? Crayon's the way to do that. Datorama, marketing metrics. Tableau, okay, so those are two Salesforce products. I mentioned Lucidchart, and then I would put in a pitch for Trello or Dragonboat or one of the agile tools that you can use to run an agile marketing department. The end.
That's an awesome list, and several on that list that I haven't heard of. So I wrote them down, and I have some homework to do. Natasha, what about you? Any must-have tools you'd flag for your list?
I mean, I think that's a great list. I think sort of following up to Liam's point about winning sales teams over, I've been a big fan in a few orgs I've worked in of sales automation tools like Outreach. I think it's even more important, you know, with the pandemic and building out cadences and sequences for the team to use to leverage multiple touch points beyond phone and email. But that's been a tool that's been really helpful for me as a marketer, but also to build relationship and trust with sales.
Awesome, love it. Well, we are at the top of the hour, so we're going to wrap things up for today. A jam-packed content build day coming up tomorrow, so I hope I see all of you guys back here tomorrow. But Jill, Liam, Natasha, thank you so much for sitting on this panel and sharing your insights. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Andrea.
Thanks very much for organizing.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.